Hello, and good to be with you again. Whether you are joining me through YouTube, the YouTube channel, or whether you are joining me through Facebook, you're most welcome. In case you're having any problems, what you need to type in for Google is Bible Break Ian Thomas YouTube channel to get to that. Or as I say, join me through Facebook. We're in Genesis 2, and we're going to read today from verse 4, and I'm reading from the New International Version as usual. So here we go. Genesis 2, verse 4. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created. When the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, no shrub of the field had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up. The Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. And the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Now, the Lord God had planted a garden in the east of Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. And the Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden, and from there it divided. It had 4 head streams. The name of the first is the Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, and there is gold, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is the Githon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Ashur. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it, you will surely die." We see there the importance of water for life, the streams coming up from the earth in verse 6, and the fact that civilization is based, society springs up around rivers. You saw from verses 10 to 14, a bit of a topography there, but the whole point is, once again, these rivers, water and rivers and streams, all necessary for life, for cultivation of the soil, for life. So we're just going to put that aside, those rivers there, and we're going to concentrate on one or two basic fundamental points from the rest of what we read. You may have cottoned onto it, the place of work in all the scheme of things. Indeed, it seems that there's something of a problem. The importance of work is put by way of a kind of problem which presents itself in the fifth verse, that here's this earth lying there, uncultivated, unworked, and it's almost as if we're proceeding with the creation of Adam and Eve, of man and woman, of the human race, from that angle. Well, here's the world now. It's not that the world exists for man, it's that man had better be there to take care of it and to work upon it. Just taking the same thing from a different angle. The same thing, I mean, in terms of what we see and, as I said, what we experience in our day-to-day experience. But it is repeated time and again in verse 15. God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Why have I got my glasses on? Work is part of what is intended, what springs from the creation, which is good. Work is good, it has dignity, it is blessed, because it is part of, it is wrapped up with the original created order. The Bible, however, is nothing if not the ultimate in realism, and we will see in the following chapter how, as well as being a great blessing, work is a curse, or at least cursed. So we'll be seeing that next time around. But I'm conscious, that even as I'm speaking about work now, being a blessing, being a curse, that there are many of us who have been affected in our work over the course of the past year, especially, and that the problems that we've had are by no means over. Obviously, that is a very serious matter. I'm just here to tell you this morning that God is very interested in this question of work and of what He wants you to do, what He wants me to do, how He wants us to busy ourselves. You may or may not have gathered by now that I believe that what I'm doing here right now with you has actually emerged, I think, over the course of the past year as something that I believe that God would have me busy myself with. But by all means, again, look to Him, ask Him, cry out to Him. I don't have any easy solutions for anybody who I'm talking to who may have lost their job or whose business may have been closed down through the reckless decisions of others. But I would encourage you to take courage, take heart, and again, seek God, seek God's face, and seek God's answer for your problems in this respect. The next thing I want to talk about, in a way, has something to do with the past year as well. Because the Bible has everything to do with everything. The Bible has everything to do with our life as we live it, when it's going smoothly, when there are crises. But here's something for you now. It's okay to breathe. Verse 7. The breath you have and the breath that you get, with all its lovely viruses to build up your immunity, with all that lovely CO2 which is essential for life. The very air which you breathe or don't breathe when God decides that the time is right, that breath comes from God. Because God gives one and all, the breath of life. What we need to know is that our life is in his hands. There used to be a program on telly many years ago showing surgeons operating, and it was called Your Life in Their Hands, and people used to love it, as people like watching hospital dramas and so on today. But the real drama in life and to do with life is that God gives you breath day to day, and that God will take that away at a time of his choosing. Once again, the important thing is to look to him, seek him, put your trust and your confidence in him. But please know that it is okay to breathe. Let's move on. Because together with these things which I think are pretty basic, things like working and breathing, pretty basic but pretty big things, as I'm sure we're all aware as well. But as well as it being an account of, well, life as we live it and as we all live it, because we are dealing with our origins, that's what Genesis means, beginnings. Well, so what you'll find in the Bible is that the book that deals with where we started, where we come from, obviously it's in a sense it's looking outside of history because, well, it's the start of history. And in the same way, the book of Revelation, although it deals with the struggles and the ultimate questions that the church has had to face down the centuries, ultimately the book of Revelation will deal with the end of the world. And it shouldn't be any surprise to us that when we are dealing with such massive questions as the beginning and the end of the world, God created the world, we are told in the Bible. We are also told in the Bible that God will end the world at a time of his choosing. Extinction Rebellion won't be able to do very much about that, but it's coming. It's coming. It will come. It will happen. I don't know when. Nobody does. Don't believe those who say they do. But when it happens, it happens. Now, the important thing, though, in terms of our reading of the Bible, is that obviously, so in the last book of the Bible, so at the start of the Bible, there is some pretty hefty symbolism. What do I mean by that? Well, obviously, I'm talking here now about verse 9, where we have trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. Well, that's something that we might recognize on a day-to-day basis. But in the middle of the garden, there's a tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Well, this obviously isn't an apple tree or an orange tree, is it? And similarly, verse 17, you must not eat from the tree of knowledge. Well, there's a passion fruit, I know, but I've never heard of a knowledge fruit. But this is what we're talking about here. Two trees. Something is being represented here in terms of two trees and their fruit. There is the fruit that is obviously on the tree of life, and that is not mentioned again, and we will come back to that in chapter 3. But there is also this other mysterious tree, which is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. why do I stress the fact that it is the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Well, because the initial question isn't what's good or bad, what's good or evil, or that the fruit of the tree is automatically bad itself. The initial problem, or the initial question, and which will forever be the main question, is that it is the tree of knowledge. I don't know if you like gangster movies, or if you watch EastEnders, but sometimes you come across a gangster. But he's a big, heavy, big mobster, big gangster, and he might be saying to the small fry in the underworld, "You're at your depth. You're at your depth. The problem with you, son, is that you know too much." Well, I'm not here, obviously, to liken God to that gangster. But I am here to tell you this morning that you and I know much too much. Because obviously that is the case, because we get tied up in questions of good and evil, of right and wrong, whereas the important thing, the really important thing, is that question of knowledge to begin with. And the thing that's more important than that is to have put our confidence and trust in God and in what we know He has said first. God said to Adam, to man, don't eat of that fruit, because the day that you eat of it, you will die. Well, they didn't eat. They did eat of it. As we know, we'll come back to that in chapter 3. And in one way, they didn't die, as we consider death. But in the most important sense, they did. And we will come back to that as well. But keep hold of that as I finish. Morality, I'm not saying that morality, right and wrong, good and bad, good and evil, I'm not saying that those questions are unimportant. What I'm saying is that what precedes and preempts them, what is more important, is believing God, trusting God, and what He has said. Because once again, it's not our relationship to issues. Issues are the order of the day, aren't they? But it's not how we feel about issues that matters. But what matters is whether we are prepared to believe and trust God. So obviously we will be coming back to all this next time around as well. And I look forward to having you with me then again. Bye for now.